The rain poured heavily on the empty streets, turning them into a shimmering maze of reflections. It was one of those nights when most people preferred the comfort of their homes, but for Rohan, a struggling young man returning from work, the night held something unexpected. As he hurried toward the bus stop, his jacket barely shielding him from the cold rain, he noticed a pregnant woman standing helplessly by the side of the road. She was drenched, visibly shivering, and clutching her belly as if trying to shield her unborn child from the harsh weather. Something in Rohan's heart told him he couldn't just walk away. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. The woman, Mira, looked up with exhausted eyes. I was trying to get a cab, but no one stops in this weather. I think my contractions have started." A sharp pang of urgency shot through Rohan. He had no car, barely any money, and no idea what to do. But one thing was clear: he couldn't leave her there. Without a second thought, he took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Come on, I'll get you somewhere safe." He waved desperately at passing cars, but none stopped. The rain was relentless, drenching them both as Mira groaned in pain. The only option left was to find shelter and call for help. Little did Rohan know, this one act of kindness would change his life in ways he never imagined. Rohan had never been someone with an easy life. Working long shifts at a small electronics repair shop, he barely made enough to afford his tiny rented room. Every rupee mattered, and every day felt like a struggle to stay afloat. His past was filled with disappointments, dreams he had to give up, relationships that faded away, and a constant battle with fate. But despite it all, he held on to one thing: his kindness. His mother had always told him, no matter how hard life gets, always help those in need. That night, standing in the rain, holding on to Mira's trembling hand, those words echoed in his mind. Mira, on the other hand, was a woman with her own set of troubles. Pregnant and alone, she had been abandoned by the father of her child. With nowhere to go, she had been trying to reach a friend's house when she found herself stuck in the storm. "Just hold on a little longer," Rohan reassured her, guiding her toward an old, dimly lit tea stall that was still open. The stall owner, an elderly man, looked up in surprise as Rohan helped Mira sit down. "Baba, can I use your phone? We need to call an ambulance." The old man nodded and handed him the phone. Rohan dialed frantically, explaining the urgency of the situation. The ambulance would take time. Mira gasped, gripping Rohan's hand tightly. "I don't know if I can wait." Rohan swallowed his panic. He had no medical knowledge, no resources, and no idea how to handle the situation. But one thing was clear: he wasn't going to abandon her now. Rohan knelt beside Mira, his heart racing as she let out another pained cry. The small tea stall barely provided any warmth, and the rain outside showed no sign of stopping. The elderly tea stall owner, Baba, looked at them with concern. "Beta, she can't wait too long. You have to do something." Rohan glanced at the door, hoping to see the flashing lights of an ambulance, but the road remained empty. He gritted his teeth and turned back to Mira. "Just breathe. Help is on the way," he reassured her, though he wasn't sure if it was true. Mira shook her head, sweat mixing with the rain on her face. I don't think I can hold on." Rohan's mind raced. There was no hospital nearby, no doctors in sight. But he had to act fast. "Baba, bring some clean towels. And warm water if you have any," he instructed. The old man hurried inside while Rohan knelt beside Mira, gripping her hand. "Listen to me, Mira. You're not alone. I know you're scared, but you have to trust me." Tears welled up in Mira's eyes as she nodded weakly. Baba returned with towels and a steaming pot of water. The stall wasn't the ideal place for childbirth, but it was all they had. And then the moment arrived. Mira screamed in pain as her contractions intensified. Rohan, with trembling hands, tried his best to guide her through it. He had no experience, but he had watched enough medical videos to understand the basics. Minutes felt like hours. But finally, a baby's cry pierced through the cold night. A healthy, crying baby boy. Rohan stared at the tiny life in his hands, his heart pounding with emotion. Mira sobbed with relief, exhaustion taking over her body. At that moment, the sound of an ambulance siren echoed in the distance. Help had finally arrived. The paramedics rushed inside, taking Mira and the newborn into their care. Rohan stepped back, his hands shaking, his clothes drenched in rain and sweat. A female paramedic turned to him with a mix of awe and admiration. "You did a great job, young man. You saved both of them." Rohan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. I couldn't leave her alone." As Mira was lifted into the ambulance, she held onto Rohan's hand one last time. "Thank you, Rohan. I owe you my life." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just take care of your baby." Days passed. Rohan went back to his normal routine, fixing broken gadgets at his tiny repair shop. He didn't expect to hear from Mira again. But fate had other plans. One evening, a luxury car stopped outside his shop. Rohan looked up in surprise as a well-dressed elderly man stepped out. "Are you Rohan?" the man asked. Rohan hesitated. "Yes. Can I help you?" The man smiled. "Actually, I'm here to help you." He introduced himself as Mr. Khanna, a well-known businessman and Mira's father. "I heard everything you did for my daughter and grandson," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You didn't just save them. You gave my family a second chance." Rohan shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I just did what anyone would have done." Mr. Khanna chuckled. "If that were true, my daughter wouldn't have been stranded in the rain." Then, he pulled out a file and handed it to Rohan. "This is for you. A job at my company. A position where your skills won't be wasted." Rohan's eyes widened. A real job. A chance at a better future. He looked at the offer, then back at Mr. Khanna. "But why?" The old man placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because good people like you deserve good things, Rohan." For the first time in years, Rohan felt something he had long forgotten. Hope. Rohan stood outside the towering glass building of Khanna Industries, staring at the company's name gleaming in gold letters. He still couldn't believe this was real. Just days ago, he was fixing broken radios in a small repair shop, and now he had a job at one of the biggest firms in the city. As he stepped inside, a receptionist greeted him warmly. "Mr. Rohan, Mr. Khanna is expecting you." Rohan followed her through the sleek hallways, his heart pounding. He had never imagined being in a place like this. When they reached a large office, the doors swung open, revealing Mira sitting beside her father, cradling her newborn. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Rohan, you actually came." He smiled shyly. "I couldn't say no to such an opportunity." Mr. Khanna stood up and extended a hand. "Welcome to the team, Rohan. This is your fresh start." As Rohan shook his hand, he felt a rush of emotions, gratitude, excitement, and a newfound confidence. Days turned into weeks. Rohan proved himself at Khanna Industries with his sharp mind and problem-solving skills. He was no longer just a small-time repairman. He was now working on high-tech projects, designing innovative solutions. His colleagues admired his dedication, and even Mr. Khanna personally mentored him. One evening, as he was packing up his desk, Mira walked in with her baby boy in her arms. "I wanted you to meet Arav," she said, smiling. Rohan looked at the baby, who gazed at him with curious eyes. "Arav," he whispered, gently touching his tiny fingers. Mira's eyes shone with emotion. "If it weren't for you, he wouldn't be here today." Rohan shook his head. "You're the strong one, Mira. You fought through everything." She smiled. "Maybe. But you gave me hope when I had none." They stood there, a quiet understanding passing between them. As Rohan stepped out of the office that night, he looked up at the sky. The same city, the same streets, but everything had changed. He was no longer just a struggling mechanic. He was a man with a future. A man who had learned that one act of kindness could change everything.